Good afternoon. Welcome to the latest edition of Lunchtime Learnings. Absolutely delighted to be joined by Rob Wellstead, who has got up there Callwell, which I'm sure you're going to tell us a bit about. But I know you from Lemwell
Yeah.
and building up the most incredible lettings business there. Absolutely phenomenal. And really, that's why I want to have a chat with you today. So firstly, thank you so much for your time.
It's good to be here.
Really appreciate it. Really grateful. So, Rob, how did you get into lettings in the first place and lettings agency? And I know that, 30 years, Lemwell, it's been going. So you must have been very young. You must have still been in nappies then.
I wasn't, yeah, almost. No, I was 19, so I was working in a estate agency, and so when would that have been? Back in the late 80s, and we decided to, myself and a guy called Richard Leonard, decided to buy some investment property and let it. And we spoke to an agent, and we were buying property in Luton, and we spoke to an agent in Harpenden, who said she didn't like going to Luton. So we couldn't really find an agent to help us. So the story was pretty simple, really, that Lemwell was set up through necessity for our own requirements, as I'm sure a lot of letting agents set up. And then we started advertising. We used to charge £35 per property to register a property on the market. Imagine doing that now. And we used to run small little classified ads and not really know what we were doing at all. But then eventually the business just boomed really quickly. So we set it up in November 1990. And by the April, I was still working for an estate agent whilst also trying to run a letting business at home. So we had a nice little answer phone that we kept in one of the investment properties, and I used to phone through with that little bleeper thing and bleep down the phone, and it would play back the messages. And I had one of those big brick mobile phones, and then I'd phone yeah, there we go. And I think at one point it used to run out of batteries too quickly, so we upgraded to one that looked like as big as a briefcase, because the batteries then lasted longer. And yeah, by the April, I think I was letting 16 properties a month, just part-time.
Wow.
Then, so think of those numbers now, it's phenomenal. And then I resigned. I didn't even know. I only just turned 20 when I went full-time for Lemwell, just about 20. And I didn't even know how to resign. Someone said to me, well, you have to tell the boss that you've resigned. I said, okay, well, I'll tell him. In writing, they said. So I remember writing a letter. Dear Jim, I resign. Rob. I had no idea. I was so naive when I think back now. But we learned so much, and Richard's still a great friend. And although Richard left the business in '93, he had other business interests anyway, and I sort of took over the business full time. We had no idea what we were doing at the beginning, and then I quickly realised that you needed to know what you were doing if you were going to be a letting agent. So one of the best things I did was in '93. Was go for BS 5750, which now is ISO 9000, which gave us the kite mark. And it wasn't really for the accreditation that we wanted. I just needed to know how to run a business. And what ISO gave me was that regimented process view. So every single process needed to be written down. Everything needed to be measured, needed to be audited, needed to be trained. And once a year, or well, twice a year back then, twice a year, I would have British Standards Institute come into my business and check that I was doing everything I said I was going to do. And for me, as a young lad running an agent, and I'm an only child as well, so I've got all of those benefits. I was a youngster, only child. I thought I knew everything, but having British standards come into my business and check that I was doing things correctly, and I was audited, and I was all the staff were trained, and we had training records in place, was fantastic at that early age, really, to know what I should be doing. And it grew.
So what made you actually go for the ISO 9000?
I had no idea what I was doing, if I'm honest. No idea at all. The first time we let a property, I went to WH Smith's to get a tenancy agreement because I knew I needed a tenancy agreement, but that was about it. We didn't know anything. So I think having the ISO, we realised that every single process that we used needed to be refined and needed to be because we were getting complaints every 5 minutes because we had no accounting system, we had no CRM system. The computer was huge and was one of these old Amstrad things that used to use, and the dot matrix printer that used to put earmuffs on because it was so noisy. So it was all really archaic. Emails weren't in existence back then. You didn't have a website. We didn't even have. We were one of the first agents to have. In fact, I was talking to one of the newspapers recently, or guys who used to work for the newspapers recently, because we were one of the first agents to advertise properties with a photograph. You didn't used to advertise properties with a photograph back in the day. So it was all a learning, and it was all looking at these processes, everything from how you marketed a property back then to how you then dealt with paying a landlord, how you dealt with receiving standing orders in, how you dealt with it, doing an inspection. And all of these processes we looked at in detail, and we pulled apart, and we looked at, that's why I always have the sign, we'll do things differently. We'll look at things differently. And that's how Callwell came along. Because we realised that we were getting all these leads coming in from Rightmove and Zoopla and things, and the negotiators. We had good people working for us, but they just couldn't cope with the leads, and they didn't know. They print them off each day, distribute them around the office, and then some of the staff would be honest and say that they'd called them back, and others wouldn't, and you had no idea. And then you'd have people turning up at the office saying, "I've sent you an inquiry," and nobody's come back to me. And so that's why we created Callwell, because it keeps track of all of that and make sure that we call people back within 20 seconds. So, which was fantastic service. And then we got Landlords off the back of that great service and things. So, so that was just one element. Inspections was another one. We created a small piece of software back in the day to do inspections on a BlackBerry. People could still go to the mobileinspector.co.uk. We're not really selling the software anymore to people, but it's still in existence, the website, and the software in a certain guise is still used to do property inspections. But again, that was just down from the point that the property inspector used to come back to the office and write up their notes and then send the inspections out. And we just thought, well, this is silly. The inspector's at the property. They can fill it in online, click submit, and it will go straight to the landlord, and then be routed if it needs work to another member of staff as well. So yeah, it was good. It's been great fun.
You were very ahead of your time.
Yeah, I think Peter Knight called me Gadget, and that stuck. I quite like that phrase, I suppose. I think it's looking at things differently, really, and innovation was always one of our values, our core values of the business. And we would encourage all members of staff to contribute any innovative ideas. They would know that sometimes they wouldn't know the solution, but sometimes they would say, well, why don't we do this differently? Why can't we? Why do we have to do inventories in the way that we do inventories? And sometimes we called it a war room. We would create a little war room to stop work, pull those people into the war room, and then decide how to solve that task. And we would methodically go through all of the processes. Everything was written down. You can still to this day go on Lenwell's website and download our business management system manual, which lists all of our processes. It's on there. If you go about us, I think it's you'd find it. And yeah, it's all documented in there. So have a read.
Thank
And
you.
it was a good, yeah, it's a good way to do it.
Very transparent as well. You know, you're actually showing everybody this is what we're capable of, this is what we're doing, nothing's hidden away, and actually you're going to live and die about that.
We're proud of it, and I think one of the reasons we were really successful with corporate landlords, big clients with more than 100 properties, those sort of people, we were very successful with those. And one of the reasons we were so successful, I think, with those clients is because of that transparency and because of that confirmation that we really were working as efficiently as we said we were, because we had it externally audited, and we would share those audits with our large clients. Our smaller clients didn't tend to want to see them. Most people didn't phone up each year and say, "Oh, I know your accreditation's due. Can you send me a copy?" It didn't work like that. But when you were going for a tender, having that accreditation really helped, and knowing that having your KPIs in place in numerous everything from how many gas safety checks are due this month, double checking that none are outstanding, how many phone calls have come in this month, how many complaints have we had, what grade of complaints have we had, what segment of our customer base are complaining or not happy, what isn't working, what is working. Having all of these measures in place really helped to build the business that it got to, really.
So you started off single office?
Single dining room.
Single dining room. Okay. So
single dining room. But remember, I was the office, the dining room was opposite Barnfield College hairdresser training, the hairdresser and beauty training, and I was 20 years old. So I didn't want to move because for me, taking the post at exactly the time that the hairdressers left Barnfield College was the highlight of my day. So, but no, I was forced to move into. I had great engagement with the estate agents in Luton. You know, they loved the fact that I was a young lad trying to make a go of it. So, so they helped me really. So people like Taylor's at the time, William H. Brown. You know, all the old names. That's probably since been bought up and things. They used to help me, and once a year we used to take my old Ford Sierra that was covered in Lemwell sign writing around with a crate of, it was so sexist now I think back to it, a crate of lager for the guys in the office and white wine for the ladies in each office, and we'd deliver crates of lager per negotiator for all of the nice leads and things that they've given us over the years. So it was good fun. But that's where we started. So we started from the dining room. We then went into the town centre of Luton, and then we started to acquire. Probably the first acquisition was 95, something like that. And a lot of these were what you would call now bolt-on acquisitions. So small, really tiny portfolios. Sometimes we wouldn't even pay for them. They were just tiny people that just would start, not really know what they were doing. There were no real CRMs of any sort back then, and so we would just take those in, and then we acquired the offices that Lemwell was still trading from at 8 Wellington Street in 1995, 96, I think it was. So we acquired the building there. And again, started to acquire small bolt-ons. And then in 2001 was our biggest acquisition, which gave us our Dunstable office. So in 2001, we moved to, we had the office there in Dunstable, which again is still there. And we bought a successful agent, the biggest agent in Dunstable at the time, Abbott's. And as I say, that was a great business, and yeah, the Lemwell Dunstable is still a fantastic office for Lemwell, and again, that was then used for more bolt-ons acquisitions. So we had small, probably single-digit organic growth each year. It was a rare year that you'd get double-digit organic growth. So we were, but then you got acquisitions that jumped you up the ladder quite quickly, really, and that's how we built it. And as I say, it's all on our website. You can see our sort of history and things. But yeah, 2007 we did a few acquisitions, and it just carried on. And we were doing one or two, and we had a written strategy. We knew exactly where we were going. We knew what the exit plan was. All the key team, a very small team, just myself, Andrew and Richard. So Andrew being our our operations director, and Richard being our sales director. And that's how we built the business. Very one non-exec that would help us with more corporate governance aspects of running the business. Very, very regimented how we would run sort of board meetings, properly minuted, structured, all ready for a potential sale of Lenwell, which we knew would come eventually. Really, when we were ready.
Okay, go on. I've got so many questions for you. So we've got a real mixed audience that are watching. So there's some that are literally starting in their letting journey.
Okay.
There are others that are literally would like to talk about acquisitions and what's the best way. But if we just start at the beginning, so I'm opening up my letting agency today. I've obviously maybe done hopefully some ALA work and compliance work, and I know what I'm talking about, and with all the legislation that's out there now. How do I go and find my first landlords? You know, if you're back again, what would you be doing to find those landlords?
Well, if you're not a sales agent already, so you're doing this literally from your kitchen table with nothing.
Yeah, you're back in the dining room looking at beauticians.
Right. Yeah. That I would say that's extremely tough to start from that level. But I would probably start with the private ads, and it's just a numbers game. And as I say, that canvassing of private ads, so Gumtree is the most obvious, to just be hit the phones and build your database up of seeing what's available, knock on doors, ask tenants, do they know their landlord? You know, we've all done it. I've knocked on doors. We've all been there. That's how, the harder you work, the luckier you get. And I think the more people that say no means you're getting closer to the person who says yes. It's corny, but it's true. And unfortunately, that's what you need to do. It'd be really tough, but just use your eyes and contacts and get out there and see what developments are going on. Check the planning permissions, perhaps, that are going through the local authority. That could be quite successful. Speak to the site offices and make sure they know about you. Offer to give buy-to-let valuations on any new properties coming available, new plots that they have. But yeah, it's just work to get those leads. Really, it's pretty straightforward. As I say, I completely applaud the sort of lead nurturing and when you do get a lead, keeping in touch with it and everything. But nothing beats picking up the phone, calling people, and just hitting the ground and seeing what's out there in the town that you want to trade in. Really,
100%. So now I'm getting more properties on. Got a few landlords. I want to increase my managed portfolio. You talk about acquisitions, and obviously I think you've acquired about 15 different agencies, and you're going to most probably tell me it's a lot more over the course of the years, which is fantastic. Again, what's the best way to approach other agencies? Is it landlords? Again, what ideas can you share that will help people looking to grow their book?
Well, I think acquisition is a great way to grow your book, but is also a great way to lose a lot of money if you don't know what you're doing. So make sure we didn't really start to acquire until we had all of our processes and procedures absolutely buttoned down, and we knew exactly what we were doing. When we were in that position, we felt much stronger, and we had a process for buying a business. Just in the same way that you'd have a process to take a property onto the market or inspect a property, we had a process for buying a business. And we would keep to that. And that was everything from how we evaluated our competitors through to how we would conduct the legal work, conduct the due diligence, etc., for bringing those properties in. So I think approach buying businesses in the same way that you would approach getting a landlord. You probably won't hit the Gumtree ads to phone the agents and ask them in that way, but map out who those agents are. Work out, go on Rightmove or Zoopla and see how many properties have they got advertised, how many staff do they employ, how long the staff been there for, etc. Check Companies House. We would monitor all of our competitors at Companies House. We'd be getting updates every 5 minutes on anything that touched Companies House, so we could see if there was a possibility of someone selling. And we would be in touch with our competitors constantly, I'd say. They'd all know us. And I had key positions at the local authority. So I'd make sure I'd be a lead on any stakeholder issues with maybe the local councils and things. We were very involved in that, and that was as much to help the property industry and to help our area improve, because the quality of housing will bring will make people's lives better, but also will bring higher rents, which in turn will bring higher fees. But I think also it made sure we were absolutely networked with our competitors in a nice way, and I think that's quite important if you want to acquire. And I'm a consultant now in the industry, so give me a call if you'd like assistance on acquisitions. If you haven't done it before, I think it's really good money well spent, really, on learning how from somebody like me to help you with that. And I know you, Stephen, you've got experience of acquisitions as well. So I know, as I say, I think people would do well to try and get a bit of advice in terms of getting landlords. Your best source of more property is your existing landlords. You'll be amazed how many landlords will have properties with more than one agent. So just talk to them, make sure you understand what their portfolio is. Segment your customers, make sure you have segments. We had I think it was about 5 different segments for our various customers, everything from contracted customers who had signed long-term agreements with us, through to I think we called them sophisticated opportunists, the landlord that will always go for the cheapest fee and be constantly looking for the best deal he possibly can in terms of what he pays, and really isn't. It doesn't matter what you do in terms of service, you couldn't seem to break through that. And we would segment them differently, and we would deal with those landlords slightly differently. And then we had, I remember, satisfied traditionalists, those landlords that were just. They were traditional. They just didn't want change, really. And they were quite happy with the service you provided. Just don't change anything. I remember once we tried to change our company logo, and we were looking to change the Lemwell logo. We thought, we'll come away from the Lemwell green and move to something different. But when we did, we checked with a lot of those landlords, and they just didn't want any change at all, not even the colour of our logo. That was a problem for them. So it's really interesting, and work out what your customer base is, because Lemwell had been trading for 30 years. A lot of our landlords have been with us for, I've been getting messages since we've sold, well over 20 years. So they've known Lemwell go through good times, bad times, us make terrible mistakes, us do really, really well. COVID, more recently, we did fantastically well at keeping our customers informed, and they were delighted with the service we provided. And they told us that. But they also would tell us where things weren't working as well. If there was a member of staff who wasn't as good, because they would feel almost part of the family, really. It was a different relationship. Now, if you're setting up brand new, you might not have that sort of relationship to begin with. So you've got to work slightly differently with those clients, and be constantly checking back with them. We used to run a lot more focus groups at the start, because we needed that help from tenants and landlords to say, well, what do you think to the landlord statements that we're sending out? Do they make sense to you? Is that how we send you can we send them second class? Do we have to send them first class? We would ask questions like that, and they go, no, you can send them once a month if you want. Okay, we'll do that. So it's just, if you ask the questions, you'll be surprised, and you mold the business around your customers' requirements and what their expectations are. And then, of course, the sweet spot is if you can beat their expectations and deliver them more than they're expecting. And as I say, that's what I think we did. As I say, in COVID, we were doing weekly webinars and giving them detailed updates on what the rent arrears were like at the moment, what tenants were saying, because landlords didn't know and they were worried. They had thoughts that perhaps tenants wouldn't be paying the rent. They were feeling guilty. They felt they should be giving money away to more. A lot of them felt that they should not be charging rent, for example, particularly the extremely wealthy ones. And so we were able to feed back and tell them, well, no, this is what most people are doing. And we had a really good dialogue there. But again, that was moulding the service around what those customers wanted, really, and then just taking it on that bit further.
Thank you. You shared loads of great stuff there. Just coming back to something that you said on your customer base, your database, let-onlys, which is swear words in some people's business. There's no such thing as a let-only, it's just rent collection or fully managed. What can you do to convert those rent-only landlords into rent collection, let-only landlords into rent collection or fully managed?
I think it is hard, and we've had situations where we've acquired businesses that have been let only, predominantly let only. It's very difficult. We've done it before where we've just literally converted to fully managed by just telling the landlords that we don't do let only anymore. Yeah. I mean, it's a bit of a sledgehammer to crack a nut, really, and it's a bit dangerous, but it does work. On a numbers game, it probably works, in that you'll make more money doing that than just continuing to just do let only. So, and sort of acknowledge the fact that you're going to lose clients off the back of it. But as long as you had a sort of tiered way of dealing with the rejection. So if you've got a landlord who says, no, look, I'm going to take my business elsewhere, if that then gets fed up the line to the business owner, who can then sort of discuss with that client, look, really, is that the case? Can we not just give this a go? Financially, make it very attractive to the landlord. We would use rent collection as a sort of starting point to then go into fully managed. But really, the best route would be to just do a sort of lower fee for the first year, and then start to increase a management fee. The main excuse was, I mean, it's completely valid, is the sheer volume of legislation that as a managing agent you need to comply with that now. It doesn't really work being let only. And then we had other challenges that we found. We had more tenancy disputes on let only properties than at the end of the tenancy than fully managed, and then that would affect, if we were still holding the deposit, that would affect our rate that we were paying TDS at the time. So it gave us other challenges, and then we would find we'd get bad Google reviews off let only properties where we had nothing, we had no way of solving a particular repair issue or something like that, whereas when you're managing, it's a slightly different situation. So I think know what they are, first of all. The amount of agents I speak to don't actually know their database, could probably give you a list of your unmanaged, but couldn't then segment those unmanaged. Again, work out those landlords that you've got no chance with, and work out the ones that you perhaps have got a chance with, and pick them off, and be methodical with it, and be forensic about it. Just have your list and just start to go through it. Don't try and do everything overnight. It will be really tough. And some landlords, what's the point of selling to a landlord a full managed service if he's perfectly good at collecting the rent himself? He's perfectly good at doing the repairs himself. One of my best clients, I remember, he's probably got 30, 35 properties. He's been with us forever as let only, but about 5-6 years ago, he went fully managed overnight. Phoned me up and said, Rob, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm annoyed. I go on holiday. I've got more money than I need. I'm absolutely fine for cash. I don't need to do this anymore. I don't enjoy it anymore. Give me a price. and I gave him a price there and then to manage his properties. And the following day we were managing them. So, but we played the long game. There was no point. He knew that at any point he could call me, but it would have been wrong for me to be constantly on his back saying, convert to manage. That's not the right way of playing it. Again, it's a relationship. And as I say, sometimes you just have to work a bit harder and get more properties on the market to make money from them, really. But yeah, it's tough.
100%. Can I come back to your systems and processes? Because I'm a very system and process person, and I know you are, and I know you've gone through every single process and system in your business.
Oh yeah.
And you've brought a lot of tech in that's most probably transformed your business. What made you, what's the best bit of tech? Obviously we've got Callwell that you talked about earlier, which has made a massive difference. What else did you bring in as a result of going through all your systems and processes? I love what you said about innovation, the war room as well, and actually getting everybody to come up with suggestions, because, how are you going to improve if you're not challenging what you're already doing? So
yeah, we would operate. We operated a lean process. So if anyone, Google lean processes. It comes from Toyota, the motor manufacturer, and they would be, again, forensic in how they would build a car, and would be constantly looking at better ways and more efficient ways, not necessarily financially efficient, but certainly in time and motion, more efficient ways of doing things. And that I won't bore you with Six Sigma and all of that stuff. People can Google it and find out about that themselves. But certainly that was a key part of our methodology of how we improved our processes. So we would use the Japanese Six Sigma methodology to look at every single process and enable all of our staff to stand up and say at any one time, literally at any time, they could effectively stop the production line and say, look, there's got to be a better way of doing this. This is ridiculous. This way of doing rent arrears doesn't work. And if they said, and they stood up, they'd be thoroughly applauded for doing that. And that would then start up. We use Trello, a project management system. We would start up a Trello card. We would call a war room, and we would methodically go through it. And many times we would find we wouldn't improve the process, but we knew we'd evaluated the process to a ridiculous level. And it got to the detail of reusing plastic folders to move paper between offices back in the day, because a plastic folder was cheaper than the buff folders that you used to have, and everyone seemed to use buff folders. And I said, why are we using buff folders? I don't understand. Why would we do that? Because we're throwing them away. It makes no sense. At one point, the scrap paper, the small amount of scrap paper, we were paperless since 1996. So we put in, if you ask about the technology that we put in, if I hadn't have put in the scanning system back in 96, we would have had to have moved offices, because the simple fact we had no room for the filing cabinets. If you've been in our office in Luton, it's not huge, it's not flash. There are no filing cabinets, none at all. We don't need them because we've got this superb scanning system that even back in the day, I think I spent over 20 grand just buying that software and the kit back then, which was a huge amount of money to spend on something like that. But I knew it was required because I knew we needed that efficiency, and it works. And as I say, to this day, that's a key. That's a key part of keeping us efficient, making sure that everything's electronic, everything's easily accessible immediately to hand, really. But as I say, we wrote numerous pieces of software, and it was Bob Scarf that obviously noticed Callwell. He was looking at Lemwell with me with a view to coming on the board, and he said, look, you don't need me as a director, but can we have a chat about this software that you've got? And I said, well, just make sure that we call all the leads back. Doesn't everyone do that? We had no idea that it was such a big problem in the industry, really. And we used it, I suppose, to annoy Rightmove initially. I thought it was good fun when Rightmove used to do their meetings, showing how many leads that they'd sent out. And I think at the time, 38% of the leads that they would send out would be responded to. And the rest, the 60 odd percent, with 62% would just be ignored by the agents. And it was embarrassing. We'd go to these meetings and I'd go away from the meetings with my little envelope saying, yeah, we inquired, 3 of your offices didn't bother coming back. And it would just be, I'd be head in my hands. I'd be thinking, what are we doing? So we built this piece of tech, and then I attended a meeting. It wasn't staged at all. I didn't even know that it was going to come out, because I didn't actually think it would actually work quite as well as it did. But I sat in a Rightmove meeting, and they said something really strange happened with Callwell. Every single one of the leads, every office that was contacted had responded within 20 seconds to every single lead. And Rightmove, I knew something was up, because the top man of Rightmove, I think it was McKittrick or something, the top guy walked in and started sort of looking, and all these people were talking to me about how did you do it, and I didn't have a plan. I didn't have any idea, because I had no idea we were going to sell it as a product to other agents, and I just said it was magic and fairy dust did it. So so they had no idea. And then, as I say, the rest is history, really. Bob obviously got wind of it, and then we went to the market, and now we've got 8,000 agents logged into it today as I'm talking to you, dealing with their leads, and probably having their branch managers on their back if their Callwell scores drop in. So sorry about that, but it does keep you more efficient and make you more money. So
brilliant, thank you. So you've worked with a lot of agents over the years. What do you need to be a high performer in lettings? I
think you certainly earn your money as a letting agent. You earn your money as a sales agent. We all know this industry is not as easy as perhaps the public think it is. I think having a persistent approach to the process of how you're going to do your job as a letting agent, I think it's really important. The detail is really important. If a tenant's got a leaky tap, have you gone back to them quickly? Have you dealt with it effectively? Has the contractor done a good job? Has he overcharged you? Has he undercharged you? Is he accredited? Is he, all of these aspects to the job? There's so much detail. It's really hard, as I say, as a smaller agent, it's particularly difficult to have every base covered. It's really difficult. And so some of the people in the industry now that are offering services to help agents are fantastic. I think if I'd have had them back in the day, it would have saved me going to WH Smith for my tenancy agreement. There's loads of guys and girls out there that will help you with the processes. So you don't necessarily have to go and build your own Callwell or build any piece of tech. In fact, I'd say, unless you've done it before, I'd also been involved in another technology business. So I'd had experience at working with developers, and I'd built a successful business completely different to estate agency. So I'd had that experience, and I'd had that knowledge, and I'd lost the money and made the money. I knew some of the challenges I was going to face if I started to build my own stuff. So I'd say to most agents, don't try and bring in your own developers and do it yourself. There's just no point. There's more than enough suppliers in the industry that will help you deliver the service that you need. Just focus on and be brutal with yourself, and make sure that you really are providing the service that your customers deserve, really. Otherwise you just won't make it. And give me a call. Get some consultancy. As I say, we'll help you out.
There you go, Rob. You've been an amazing guest. Really grateful for your time. If people do want to get hold of you, where's the best place to reach out?
Yeah, probably through LinkedIn. Really through Callwell, Robert Callwell. You'll get me. .co.uk, or via yourself, Stephen. But yeah, just I'm not working that hard now. That's the whole idea of building up a business and then selling it. But no, I'd love to help other agents succeed. As I say, it's a tough market out there, but there's still huge opportunity, really. And I think you just, if you need any help, give us a call. And of course, the Callwell product's fantastic. If you haven't seen it in action, get in touch and ask for a demo so you can see what it does. And I think, give it a go. You'll find it great.
Brilliant. Well, everybody, thanks so much for watching. Thanks for listening on replay, watching on replay. Incredibly grateful. Tomorrow, Friday, I'm going to be joined by Hine Joshe, and thank you, Hine, for watching today, where we're going to be talking about his journey. So please join me tomorrow at 12:30. Rob, have a great afternoon. Have loads of fun.
Thank you very much.
Lovely talking to you. Incredibly grateful. And thank you all. Have a great afternoon.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, then. See you soon. Cheers. Bye.